Oh my God, I was dying over here. I'm like, hello? Hello? Cypher, why let you not me?
Hey, anyways, what's up, buddy? Streaming.
Yeah. I saw that you were in the hangout. I'm like, all right, cool. You know, Cypher must be doing something. I'll tag in.
Yeah.
And then, I'm just driving around doing DoorDash. So, like,
gotcha.
If you want me to chime in on anything, feel free to. I know you usually do your news roundup in a particular way, but
yeah, today's gonna be a bit different because Nikki was not able to do the copy this week. She had family stuff happen. Sorry, that makes it sound negative. She had family come over last minute, basically is what happened. So she had to prep for that.
Gotcha.
So going by the seat of the pants a little bit on this one, just a little bit, everybody out there that might be watching this right now, if anybody actually is. So what we're going to do is I'm going to cover the Pelosi attack and all the bullshit that happened from that, some election news, some polls narrowing and stuff, and a little bit of the economy, and then call it a night. So hopefully.
And Kanye being racist as hell.
Oh, you know what? I should put that on there. I should also put Kanye being racist as hell. I didn't know I could be racist to Jew because I'm a Jew. Sure, buddy. Sure.
Oh my God. This was so crazy. Like, why do I live in bizarre world?
Kanye, racism, Jews.
Oh, here's one.
Jews.
I don't know who was I can't remember which outlet it was, but there was an outlet that did a story about how we should have like COVID amnesty. Are you familiar with this?
No. Let's hear it. Hold on a second. So let me put a marker in for when the show starts for my own peace of mind, and then talk to everybody, and then we'll get into it in a second. How's that sound?
Sure.
All right. Hey everybody, sorry about all the confusion and everything. I've not been on my A game streaming since getting back from my work trip, so that's what's going on here. But this is the Crowdsourced Politics News Roundup. And as you might have heard over the last 5 minutes or so, we're going to be flying by the seat of the pants a little bit here, simply because I didn't have time to make a really good and robust copy. That does not mean the content's going to be bad. It's just going to be in a different format than what you're used to over here. Tonight, I am going to be joined by Tiberius D off camera because he is currently working, but he graciously graced us with his presence, so to speak. So we're going to bounce some ideas back and forth, talk about some stuff, bring you the news that was of the last week, the kind of analysis only the crowd can provide. So if this is something that you're interested in, or you haven't done it yet, please follow, smash that like button for the algorithms. It super helps us out because we are trying to make a name for ourselves. We are trying to be a little bit of NPR with a little bit of edge, bringing you news before anybody else does, at least with the kind of commentary that you come here for. So that Tiberius, you were saying before I rudely interrupted you about some COVID amnesty nonsense or something like that. What's that about? And then I'll get your it's not going off either. Jesus Christ. But anyways, what is that about? And I'll get you on the screen here just for your little bleeping thing.
Sure. I'm trying to follow this the best that I can. This is coming out of the right wing, so I get a whole earful of it. But this is one of those things that I look to the right wing and I'm like, oh my God, I hate this. So here's the story. Earlier this week, October 31st, The Atlantic published an article. It was an op-ed, said, let's declare a pandemic amnesty, right? And the right is just openly, I don't even know if they've read the article, but I'll put it in this regard. They're openly seeing this as a capitulation of the left, that the left is now owning up to the fact that they were somehow misleading everybody and the vaccines aren't nearly as safe as that they claim to be and all this.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's bad. And so I did a wonderful TikTok on this today, just talking about, some of the mistakes that actually have been made, but how the vast majority of the anti-vaxxer crowd is absolutely full of crap.
Right. I'm going to drag us into a new channel real quick, and then we'll continue. Okay, so what is this That's not what I wanted. No voice currently active. What are you talking about? Oh, I see. There we go. So, can you hear me? Ty? Did I fuck it up? I fucked it up. All right, fine. Back to Hangout. Ty, can you hear me? Okay. Fuck. Keep fucking up the streams, man. That's why. Anyways. So, yeah, that's interesting. Let's go ahead and pull up that article then. Oh, he dropped. Probably. There he goes. Can you hear me?
Trying again.
All right, I can hear you again. I can hear you now. All right, cool.
Okay, just this is not you. This is a Bluetooth issue. For some reason, Discord has some errors with Bluetooth to where if it's a private room, half the time it'll lock you out, and you kind of just have to like consistently reset it.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'll just fix my stream thing, and then you continue talking while I do that.
Okay, so anyway, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Anyway, where I left off was largely just explaining that a lot of people, particularly in the populist right, have taken this particular story, which I do believe is an op-ed, and I believe it actually is from Fauci, but I could be incorrect on this one. But, there is some people that are like, were we a little too heavy-handed with some of this stuff? And there's some people who are like, were we heavy-handed enough? I don't have a problem with any of this being in the discourse. I have no problem with this being news. The issue that I do have is that when I look at people and I talk to people, I fervently believe that the understanding of this thing called statistics is absolutely horrific.
No one understands statistics. People that take statistical classes in college barely understand statistics because the 201 statistics class is basically a pre-class to actual statistics. No one knows how to do it. No one knows how to do it, man. Like, I barely remember anything from my statistics class. The thing that I remember the most from all this is that is that you can make a lot of great points with statistics, but the fact of the matter is you have to be very careful, and when I say nobody is, I mean lay people. They're not. What is it? 80% of statistics are pulled out of my ass.
Yeah, and you also have lies, damn lies, and statistics, which is one of my favorites as well.
The author is Emily Oster. No idea about this article. I have not read it yet, but I did see things about it, but I'm like, I don't really care, man. Stop. It's fucking like, I'm so done with COVID. Like, people don't even understand how much, like, I don't know. I am one of those people that said everybody should get vaccinated. I am one of those people that say, hey, if your kid gets a communicable disease that could have been prevented from vaccination because you refused to vax them, not because of a medical condition, maybe you should be charged with child abuse. That is how far I'll go on that. Okay. That's
Ooh, heavy. I love it.
Yes, very heavy, because your parental rights do not give you the right to make your child sick because of your stupid ass beliefs. And that we don't tolerate. People will beat their kids to almost death, and we'll hold them accountable for that. But we won't do it for like a vaccine that makes it perfectly preventable for them to get something, and then they get it. That's fine. It's the same thing. You're beating them because of your belief in something. We don't recognize that. Why would we recognize it for vaccinations? But that's how far I'll go with this.
Well, that's definitely pretty hefty, but I'll definitely give you another one. And this is my particular take. I would like consistency between either the right or the left, in the regard that if the right's going to say you are too immoral, you are not a good enough agent to, exercise the right of abortion effectively, then why are you letting people make medical decisions, effectively on them? On the other side of that,
fair enough,
is like I feel the exact same way about the left, though, in the regard that, all right, if you're going to let people have abortions, then you need to, give people the leeway to, exercise their own medical rights. There is no consistency with either of the political spectrum when it comes to these two issues.
I mean, there's not going to be political consistency. It's not one of those things that you can actually say that that there's a 1-to-1 comparison with it. To be honest,
Right. I'm not going to say there is a one-to-one comparison. Obviously, your own medical and health is not the life of a potential child, right?
Yeah.
What it does get into though is very akin though, and is that how does our personal medical decisions affect the others around us or those we interact with? And that's where there's a crap ton of consistency and a crap ton of overlap. And that's where I will throw shade at both the right and the left, because neither of them are showing me a principle that they're digging into. It's like, all right, do you respect that people had the dignity and the intelligence to be rational actors, to either have those procedures, either one of them, done according to their own choosing, or do you think that they're not? Like, that's really what it boils down to. Do you think people are rational enough and informed enough actors to make these critical decisions?
Oof, that's a hard one. Very hard one, honestly.
Well, I'll put it this way. I'm going to be an elitist Tiberius for a minute here for the audience and just say, y'all are not impressing me very much. And don't get me wrong, I can be wrong. I am wrong from time to time. But the amount that I have been wrong is far less than I have been right. And I am amazed at the absolute accuracy rating of the American public. I think you guys are about shooting 2 for 10 at this rate.
I didn't quite understand what you said, to be honest with you. Can you just repeat yourself?
Yeah, I'm sorry. The Bluetooth doesn't always come through.
No, it wasn't that. It didn't register as all. It wasn't your
oh, okay. I'm just thinking that when it comes to the majority of the American public, and actually being correct about stuff, not only do we have the problem of just openly being partisan as hell, but when we actually do seem to have any kind of consistency or consistence, we tend to be wrong more than we tend to be right, which is scary.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. For this sort of thing in particular, it's very hard to the biggest deal with it. The reason why you're not going to see consistency is because of where the agreement is, or disagreement rather, is where a life starts. Not life, maybe person, or a sentient being, or whatever you want to call it, for when abortion might be murder. And then also whether or not vaccines are for your own personal protection, or if they're for the protection of other people.
And that's where I respect the separation there. Obviously, it's not a one-to-one.
Yeah.
But as I was saying, there is definitely parts where they don't overlap, but there's definitely parts where they really do.
For sure. Here we go. Copy.
So anyway, I gave you a story. What's story number 2 for today?
Well, story number 2 for today, I guess it was one that we can talk about. Let's talk about Elon Musk stuff, because I think that's funny. I had some prep for that one. Let me see what my prep is. Oh, my prep is just links. I don't even think I have. Yeah, so let's bring up some tweets from the old Elon Musker real quick. All right, from his own personal Twitter page. And
so I don't pay it.
Do that. There we go.
I don't pay attention to Elon. Sure. I don't pay attention to Elon super familiarly. I think people have this really all in or all out position to him, but that's pretty much celebrities in general right now.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I'll put it in this regard. Elon has proved so far with this Twitter thing that he's been one of the more rational actors compared to what people have been acting like. On one side, the right has been openly been like, oh, he's going to come in, we're going to have Donald Trump back, and we're going to have all this and that. The left is being like, we're going to leave, it's going to be 4chan and all this. So, number 1, Donald Trump is not back. Number 2, he openly posted this, and I believe him on this particular claim, that he is putting together a committee for Twitter to outline what is going to be the new TOS, what's going to be allowed, what isn't. It's going to be, as clear as they can get it, although that'll be, we'll see where that goes. But He's just going to nail it out. This is what flies, this was what not, and then apparently what they're going to do, which is going to be really interesting, is that they're going to backlog. Give me a second here. I got a train next to me.
All right.
Apparently, they're going to backlog everyone who was banned within like the last 5 years, and they're just going to go through the accounts and they're going to be like, were you banned for something that violated the old TOS but not the new one? And if so, you will be reinstated. If you violated the new TOS anyway, then you're going to stay banned. That's apparently what's coming down.
We can't say what's coming down or not because he's throwing spaghetti out the wall and seeing what sticks. Literally is what's going on right now.
Well, here's the issue.
That.
Okay, the issue that I have with that is, well, Elon usually is incredibly flamboyant, and what I mean by that is he's very hyperbolic when he talks. Is that whenever he makes certain proclamations, he tends to do some of them, and one of those is that one I notice is that when he's a lot more direct about his speech and the way that he's talking, there usually is a lot more truth than it is, butter. But does that mean that he's followed through on everything? No, I'm not going to say that he hasn't. He's kind of crazy. But I'm just going to outline that last post that I was talking about in particular. One, seems to be a very rational thing to do, and two, I don't think he's going to be able to hold on to, what is it, a $40 billion company, and can maintain it profitable if it turns into a laughingstock and a joke and basically the next 4chan. So I think he has a vested interest in making this succeed.
Oh no, he definitely has a vested interest in making it succeed. It's just that the ideas that he's talking about around are stupid. So that's why I put the thing up on Twitch rather, of his meme about like pay $8 a month for Twitter verification, so much for free speech. You can still use Twitter for free, just without the benefits. And it shows the NPC meme going, I hate you. You're stupid or mad and you're triggering me or whatever, right? No one cares about the verification.
I think actually.
No, let me explain.
I'm sorry. Sure.
So when I say no one cares about the verification, I mean the vast majority of people that use Twitter do not care about the verification outside the fact that it gives them sort of status. And the reason why Twitter implemented it in the first place is to, one, protect the people that had their own brand and their own following from like parody accounts so that you could tell the difference between their real account and a parody one, and to entice them to stay on the platform to keep making content for the platform. Now, we don't need this kind of stuff in order for people to continue to make content on the platform and be quote unquote an influencer. They have other options, and they'll go to the other options that don't have this stuff. People have already started to leave and take their followers with them back to Instagram. Journalists have already started to leave to go back to Facebook. Depends on the journalist, okay? Some of them are still using Twitter, but they don't give a shit about it because they have their own Substack. They don't need these quick, direct things anymore. Twitter isn't the only game in town.
Okay. And none of that, of what you said, is something I have a problem with. If anything, is that I think this is a move to reinvent the verification system. It's just simply this. All right, cool. We used to hand it out for the reasons that you said. Now with this new iteration of Twitter, it's going to be, hey, look, you know what? It's pay to play. If you want to show that you take your account seriously and you want to throw in money on it to show everybody else that you take your account seriously, then you can buy into that. If you're not interested, that's cool too. But if you do buy into it, you will get a number of benefits. So yeah, it's a retooling, which is exactly what I expect from a buyout.
But those retooling things are going to create peasants and lords that he's said that he wants to go against on. Because what's going to end up happening is, in order to go viral, because he's already basically brought this up, in order to go viral, you're going to have to pay. If you don't pay, you're never going to go viral. They're not going to promote your tweets. They're going to change the algorithm to where it benefits people that only pay. So it's not actually solving the problem that he wants to solve, or at least claims to. All it is trying to monetize clout. He's trying to make
that's the
clout
thing.
Get them more money. And what really should happen is, if he cares about the bots and everything else, is just to make an actual verification system. I don't care how it's done, but every account that a person makes needs to be tied to a real person. And that every account that a person makes needs to be tied onto each other in an easy, verifiable way from the public.
I don't have a problem with what you're saying. I don't think that the business structure is actually going to reflect that. Now, is there
What do
bots
you
on
mean by that?
Twitter? Probably. What I'm saying is that just having it to where you have a verification system for each and every account, like, can you do that? Yeah. Is it going to be quite a bit of like IT legwork? I would think so. But what it really seems to me is that they're going with a more, uh, I would say, work restrictive approach in regards to, if you want to show that you're real and for serious and that you have backing, then you pay for it. You come in, you do your thing. Now, if he's saying stuff before about he's going to make it to where the little guy can have a voice and he's counteracting that, I haven't seen that personally. But if that's the case, then he's a liar, and I'll own out on it. But I'm not an Elon stan anyway. So
Yeah, I just don't see this being the actual fix that people think it is. And really, all the right wing cares about is Trump getting back on Twitter and being able to say that men can't give birth. That's all.
well, I mean that, and to a large degree, I don't disagree with that, and I'll be very interested to see where it goes. I'll actually make a bet
because he got dumped for a trans woman. So,
well, that's the thing. I definitely see that with Elon running it. I bet the trans conversations come back, and honestly, this is going to be very verboten for a lot of people on the left, but that's actually a good thing from a business perspective, because why they won't make any kind of like ad revenue, if they were making any at all, it will draw eyeballs, because you will have MSNBC and CNN and whatever
sure,
being able to pull tweets from prominent people showing how absolutely transphobic they are. Like, that probably will end up being a win for them. Yeah. When it comes to Trump, I'll actually bet you $10 that I don't really have that Donald Trump will not be reinstated.
oh, Donald Trump might be reinstated, but he's not going to join because he's trying to make he made his own Truth Social, and he's got contractual obligations to it, and he can't have. I don't think he has the wherewithal to maintain 2 social media accounts and himself.
I couldn't speak to that, but
so for the contractual obligations under his contract with Truth Social, he has to not post anything on Truth Social, and then again on another social media platform for a minimum of 6 hours. And by then it's no point. And he's trying to still turn Truth Social into a money making thing, even though he's stiffed Right Forge of all the money. Money. So
I'll say to that. Well, look, I'll say to that. Contracts withstanding, I actually don't believe that Twitter will actually reinstate him, because of the fact that whatever TOS that they come up with, I don't think there's not going to be a tweet that they can find that doesn't violate. Like, Trump really kited into some really bad waters on a lot of the things he said, and
right.
like, I mean, you might have to go fishing through a backlog of tweets, but the long and the short, it for me, is simply comes down to the idea that I think at some point or another, if they're going to do due diligence, they're just not going to let him back on, because there's too much of a backlog of hyper-inflammatory shit.
Yeah, no, I can see that. What do you think about him firing everybody and then the people he fired getting millions of dollars in payouts?
The severance packages, I can't speak to. Like, I'm hearing that quite a lot of them, walked away pretty nicely. Which,
$80 million.
Was that just one person, or was that total?
That was one person. I think that was one person. You know what? I'll Google it really quick, but I'm pretty sure that was like between 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
I think one person got 44 million on his own.
That's impressive, but look,
$122 million in severance
for one person, or in total?
That is on Fortune. Let me find an article I can read that I either paid for to read or not. Here we go. Wall Street Journal. Twitter executives in line for $100 million payout after Elon Musk fired them. So that's total.
Okay, that makes some sense. Number one,
44.5 million for CFO Ned Siegel, and 43.8 million accelerated equity, Equilar said. So, including 43.8 million in accelerated equity. And then 1 million cash for Siegel, blah, blah, blah. 30.4 million for Agrawal. Agrawal. So, yeah, there you go. 2 people.
that's interesting. So what I can say about severance packages is that usually the reason that you'll get significant payouts is because of liability issues. If you don't basically pay them off to a significant degree, you probably have a lawsuit because of improper firings and whatnot. Remind you that a lot of these folks do have contracts as being CFO or CEO. Second part is that C-suite positions and companies, and I don't know if Twitter's a Fortune 500 yet, but I think they're pretty close if they're not. These are very, very prominent and powerful positions, and they demand a lot of respect, which is one of the reasons why I keep saying that people in the federal government are paid way too low compared to their responsibility. But that's another conversation.
Yes, 100% agree.
Yeah. So the long and the short for me simply boils down to this: the severance packages are its own thing. I'm not going to get into that but the other side of the conversation is that when it comes to 75% of the workforce to be fired, number one, I've said this, is that whenever you take over an institution, you bring in your own people. You don't let people who are part of the previous institution that you don't like sit there and run it. It never works out. The other part here is that I will be a political hack for a second here and simply say that it's funny how these workers demanded that they not to be, devalued because of their political positions, and yet they really did that to a lot of people for a very long time. So comeuppance.
Oh, the C-suite people don't give a shit. So I don't necessarily agree. As far as they're concerned, they don't agree that was the stance they took. As far as other people, Twitter's toss, actually all social media toss at this point, has a left-wing bias, except for maybe Parler, Gitter, Better, whatever. Fuck all those other people, right? And that's simply because if you're trying to attract as many people as possible, you're going to ban people that engage in bigotry, right? Because the majority of people do not want to engage with a platform where they're going to get harassed for who they are, or what they are, if you want to put it that way. Maybe who is their personality, what is their demographics. I think that might be fair. And they'll just leave. That's why 4chan only has a certain kind of audience. That's why 8kun only has a certain kind of audience. It's why what is it? Not what's the racist one? Like the one that basically only has the one that basically only has Nazis.
You got me, but what I definitely can say,
place, whatever.
Oh, I know what you're talking about now, but I can't remember what it's called. The long and the short for me, out of all of this, is that excuse me. Long and the short out of all this, when it comes to the TOS, is it going to have some level of bias? Yes. Mm-hmm. I obviously don't agree with you on how discriminatory the right is compared to some other things like that. I'm not going to do that conversation today. What I do seriously have to roll here is that there is some conversations that are in the political discourse that are going to have eyeballs and will actively draw in an audience because
for sure.
of the fact that they're loud. And so there's some levels where that's a win. The other side of that is I'm going to be an asshole to your audience maybe, but there are conversations that have absolutely gone through the social storm and have come out the other side way quicker than they should have. It's like, look, I get it. I'm not anti-trans, but the trans conversation was going to be 30 years, and they tried to shove it through in 5. There's going to be hell to pay for that one.
What do you mean by they tried to shove it through in 5?
Okay,
who is they, and what do you mean by shove through? Because we have to acknowledge that social. One second. We have to acknowledge that social media hyper activates everything.
Yeah, so I'm going to say that between either a combination of social media or just the left in general, and remind you that you don't need a conspiracy to have like everyone in the same direction, is
Sure.
that it basically was the whole conversation of, all right, we have a new group of people on deck. We need to validate or invalidate them. It's trans folks. All right, do we validate them? The left said yes, the right said no. And unlike the gay community, which basically was a 40-year slog, this conversation was blown through in the better part of 5 years. Now, I'm a jerk when I say this, but most people did not have a freaking iota of the idea that trans people were a legitimate thing that was going to be in the social discourse until after gay marriage was legalized. And now it's been what, 6 years since that? 7 years since that? And we're already like, all right, trans folks are normalized, and they're part of it. They're a part of society. If you don't agree, you're a bigot. Okay, I get that argument, and I actually probably agree more than I don't. But for me, it's like you're literally going up to an entire part of the country saying, "Hey, look, we believe that men can be women and women can be men, and if you don't agree with us, you're a bigot." I'm sitting here, I'm like, if anyone thought that that was going to go over well or easy or was not going to be a rolling fight for at least 2 decades, I don't know what to tell y'all. Like, holy crap!
They don't care. People don't care. Everybody,
right? And that's,
everybody on the left is basically at the point where if you're being bigoted at all, you have to get with the program or get crushed. Which, honestly,
right.
from a moral standpoint, is probably the correct option.
It might be. The problem that I have with this, that I don't think it actually goes well with actually the tolerance or the doctrine of tolerance, in the regards that if you're going to tell people that you are inclusive and tolerant and whatnot, but you openly reject the idea because basically your tolerance is validating the intolerance of another, it's a bad slope to be on, but I think it's one that they have to embody. And that's where I think that this is a conversation and a fight that is going to pay dividends for the right in the long term, because I don't think some of these major issues, like particularly Roe now and the trans conversation, is getting easier to have. I think they're getting harder to have. It's going to be one of these deals to where everyone's just kind of hunkered in. It's like, well, I'm on this team, and if you don't like it, you can suck off. It's bad. It's getting real bad.
I mean, that's fair, but I don't necessarily think that this is... What's a good way to say this? I don't think that the issue is with this that it was trying to make it happen too quickly. More so of just everything just happens quicker now because of scale of social media. Okay, for example, would this issue have penetrated Indiana at all if not for social media? Tiberius, did we lose you?
Oh, sorry, I hit the wrong button. I was trying to talk to you when I was muted. Yeah, sorry about that. The part that I'm on with this is that would this have penetrated into Indiana? I don't know, but that's the problem. And like Bill Maher did a wonderful skit on this, which was kind of hilarious. Is that why is it that there's so many trans folks in California, but there's none? Yeah,
that's dumb though. That's such a dumb argument. You agree with that, right?
There's a level where it's like, all right, hey, cool. Why is it that the people that you don't accept aren't outing themselves? Right? Yeah. That's basically what the argument fall into, right? There's a level where that makes sense. There's also a level where it's like, if this is something that people innately have, which is some of the arguments that people are making, is that like you innately know that you aren't the gender you're supposed to be, then you would have far more instances of what we have seen in the gay community, which was, look, I understand that you all don't approve of this. I understand that you don't like it, but I'm gay. And I know I'm gay. Okay. And I don't think you see that.
That's what
I don't think you see that with the majority.
The majority of trans people say that.
Like, okay, I get that. And that, or I know that's like the argument that's been had here. but I don't see hardly any folks that are trans or who will say that outside of downtown Indianapolis.
That's probably because of where you live and the fact that they're scared.
Right. And so that you do see the disconnect I'm trying to lay out here, right? Is that even when scared, there was folks who were gay and who were clearly gay who would just be like, I know you don't love me. I know you don't like me, but
yeah,
I am gay.
That was after Stonewall. Maybe after we have you're going to start seeing it more because the right is getting more militant about it. You're going to see see militant trans people come up because of how militant the right is getting against trans people. And that's not necessarily a good thing. No, I don't
disagree.
I mean showing up with guns and stuff. I don't mean like being mean on Twitter. Like being mean on Twitter, it permeates. Don't get me wrong, it permeates. And you're seeing a lot of people like, shut up, TERF. Like, why don't you just die then? Like, you see that. That's what's going on. So, but you're going to see it more happen after a tragedy. And a tragedy is going to happen.
Oh, I don't disagree with you. And that's the sad part is that any kind of major overhaul change, and particularly when it comes to perceptions of people, usually does not come without blood. And so I expect that, which is sad. But I think we are gonna have a tragedy, and America's gonna have to, like, each individual American's gonna see, all right, do I actually believe in this? Or
yeah, it's amazing, honestly, that the Boston Children's Hospital actually hasn't been blown up yet.
I will refrain from comments at that point. I will suffice it to say that, do I see a militantism coming out of the trans community? Yes. Do I think it'll get worse? Also, yes. Do I think it is unwarranted? Actually, no. The problem is that everyone's militarizing, and at some point, we don't stop militarizing, and that's the thing that I'm worried about. But everyone believes that they're right, and I just kind of look at everybody. I'm like, you all couldn't be more wrong on hardly anything. So,
for the audience that might not know Tiberius, he is a conservative, but he has libertarian sympathies when it comes to civil rights. Would you say that's fair?
First of all, I would never call myself a conservative. The ironic part here, and yeah, the ironic part here is I'm center right, but I'm not like, oh, I'm a moderate. I have very very balanced policies. I'm actually like a radical centrist. But and to actually describe that, somebody was trying to describe me the other day, and it's like, Ty, it's weird, but you're like a right-wing progressive. I'm like, I hate that I'm called a progressive, but I can't argue this.
Another conservatively aesthetically pleasing lefty.
I guess whatever the hell that means, but yeah, the long and the short here is that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. The long and the short for me is that I would love and idealistically love to be a libertarian and just let people just kind of go out in the world and, make the best for what they can. But I've gotten to the point now, and I don't know if it's because I've gotten on my 30s, is that I believe that people are still the best agents for their own self-regard, but without the institutions in a society that kind of outlines the ground rules for everybody, I think eventually everything just goes to hell. So it's like conservatism to like ground out what the rules are, liberalism to be like, hey, you know what, you can choose beyond what those rules are, and a little bit of economic spattering over here, so everybody gets a little bit of nice things. Like, I'm for Medicare for all, but I want to fold Social Security into it because I don't like it. So if anyone, that pretty much puts me into a very nice box for people to evaluate me on.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Fair enough. My comment though is what I basically dig at Connor with. I think Connor is he is worried about the pace of change, but not the change itself. And so and he's more Burkean in his outlook on a lot of things, but he's pretty much on board with all the social issues. So, at least that's my experience.
Yeah, Burkean and conservatives I really like, and this is where I take the right wing progressive thing and I don't disown it. Is that if you don't change, if your society does not continue to reinvent itself and evolve and grow with the times, it will stagnate and die. Like, this is why I could never be like a hard right, like, Puritan, ethno-nat, whatever the hell, flavor of the far right is, that you want to pick, is that they have a mentality that leads to blatant stagnation and death for a society. It's like, all right, we'll get 20 years of purity where we all agree with each other. It's going to be great. And then everyone that's a rival of that society will leap past them by bounds because they are continually changing, molding, and evolving where that society goes stagnant. So I can never be on that. On the other side is that, for anyone who wants to know, is that there are people who are like hard progressives or hard, anti-traditionalists, what have you. And I'm like, look, I have no problem with change, but there is a problem with that. Not all changes are good. And I will even make the statement that some of the things that we have changed that we take for granted to this very day were taken down the wrong paths. I think Social Security was a nightmare. I think we spend way too much in social assistance and not actually helping out people that will save them money in the long term, such as instead of having something like the child tax credit, I want to bring back Clash for Clunkers that makes you have more fuel-efficient cars, safer cars that will keep you alive and keep your gas bill lower.
I mean, the earned income tax credit has been shown to work, but I understand what you're saying. You don't want to just give people necessarily cash. So.
Well, to some degree, yes, actually, is that if you just throw people cash, then you don't know what they're spending it on, and they could be doing anything from buying Cheetos by the fucking crate.
There's your conservatives coming out. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
eating
I'm dead. Yeah, unironically, yes. This is a very real point. That's the right winger in me, is that just throwing people money could be incredibly helpful if they put it into something like a Roth IRA, or make sure that they're spending it on their food.
So it doesn't. So if we can prove that the vast majority of people use it to better their conditions, would you be against it still?
I'm half in and half out, because I've seen some of the data that actually indicates that they do exactly that.
Yeah.
The problem is, for me, is that it's not just the fact that we're giving folks money. It's that do we have a mindset of helping people maintain, or do we have a mindset of helping people to grow? This is where this is where I flip the conversation completely on its head. Why is it that the more that a country has in government spending, the correlation is that it is inverse with growth? The more social spending that a country generally tends to have, the less economic growth that it has. And it's been true for the better part of the last 50 years.
That's our hard one to do, because then there's other covariants going with that, right? So
yes.
So if we look at Europe, basically, Europe has had a population decline. Their population decline, basically they never rebounded from World War II. For all intents and purposes, they had a baby boom, but quickly went away. Is that because people are too secure, or is that just because they're not secure enough? Is it because of people getting more money and being more prosperous and therefore not needing to have as many kids, or do people just not want to have kids as much as they used to? Birth control?
I will actually, so birth control I think is a huge deal. But if I'm actually going to put it into just a simple argument, is it too secure or not secure enough? I'm actually going to say it's too secure. And I know that may be a more shocking thing to take, but Europe has had some of the best Gini coefficients and most best measurements for standard of living, overall happiness of the developed world for the last 70 years, basically since the 1960s. Even with all of the pains and struggles that compare Europe, particularly Western Europe, to the United States, and by most metrics, the Europeans have always been happier. But they have been having less kids literally since about 1970. and by massive leaps and bounds. United States, say what you will about bad birth control policies, say what you will about our particular cultural axioms that are different than Europeans, is that when it comes down to it, we just have more kids. And of course, we also have immigration, but that's a different conversation entirely.
Yeah, because the data actually, for people that might not know, and we don't have to talk about this, Tiberius, but just to let people know, data actually suggests that if we didn't have immigration at the levels that we do, we might be way closer to Europe in birth rates than what we actually are. So
there's a really weird number with this that comes down to it. If you're just talking about white people in this country, to some degree, the answer is yes. But this is the crazier part. White people in blue states versus white people in red states do have a birth discrepancy of 0.5, meaning that most white people in red states tend to actually be a lot closer to replacement. They're generally about 1.8 right now, versus if you're in like the Northeast, up in like New York and Pennsylvania and whatnot, your rate is 1.3, which is a huge deal.
And I would probably say that is cultural rather than it being economic.
That one I'm not sure on. In some regards, I think that's a bit of both. But I
mean, you can't tease it out completely, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the kicker. I don't know the answer to that. There's way too many factors. There's way too many variables. And the problem with culture is that when it comes down to culture, it is really hard to quantify in numbers.
Yeah. Because I don't know, like I people that say that, and this is just going to be, well, how much do I want to talk about myself? So I am not going to have biological children. I know that you're aware of that. Some of the audience might not be. So this is going to be good for the cast in general. And the reason for that is many, but primarily my gene pool is kind of shit. My mom has Alzheimer's. My brother has bipolar disorder. I have 2 or 3. 2 or 3 because my papa was a Rolling Stone. Okay, but 2 or 3 autistic brothers from my dad. My sister has an autistic son, and we're not talking high functioning autism. We're talking low functioning autism. This isn't to say that these people shouldn't exist. Okay, don't get it twisted out there, lefties. Had this conversation with my wife a lot, so not that. It's that I do not think I am capable of taking care of somebody like that at the degree that they need, personally, because of how I grew up. So that's why I'm not having. That is the biggest reason why I'm not having kids. And I think, culturally speaking, I think liberals are more likely to make that choice than anybody that's conservative. And I don't know why. But that's my guess. Is that's partly what's happening.
I concur with this. And the sad part is that, like, I like lefties. I definitely prefer like the more like left than the far left. But two of the things that really admonish me among a lot of the left-wing folks are, one is that they have picked up a massive anti-natalist fervor.
Well, is that anti-natalist though? The position I stated, I just want to make sure that we're clear, because you're bringing it up in response to you concurring this. So I just want to make sure.
Okay, it's that they have a very strong aversion to the notion of having children. And it's weird because on one hand, I talk to people I talk to lefties, and it's like they believe that if the average human is given a proper food, proper housing, proper education, and proper health care, they will have a good life, but not only have a good life, but they will be like kind of like a Nietzschean Uberman in the regard that they will be like good and moral and productive and happy.
Sure.
Whereas At the same time, I have people that are like, I'm not going to bring a life into this world because, I have bad genes or have, illnesses or diseases or what have you. And I wouldn't want to bring people into this world. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, number one, like how do you not have the opportunity for growth if they're not here? Number two is that if you believe yourself to be morally strong, good, and capable, then why would you not have a generation to pass it on to? And the third, which is probably the...
Okay, sorry, I'll let you finish. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. The third part is that even with all that being said, like even if you do have problems, is that problems like health concerns like blindness and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and all this, while absolutely horrible for me and my philosophy, are a challenge. It's like, how do we make a world better to where either we can help build a society where we take care of folks like that to where they have a good life, or you go full on Giga Chad here where you're like, is there tools that we can develop to alleviate blindness, to alleviate Alzheimer's, to alleviate those? And that's why another reason why I'll never agree with the puritanical right is that every fight that you have to deal with in terms of people who are delinquents or defective or whatever horrible things that you is that it's a challenge for the human ingenuity to overcome it. This is why I'm a massive fan of genetic engineering, and that while I do not know what the capabilities of this are, I'm like, yeah, we need to jump into this headlong. If we don't, we deprive ourselves of the ability to fix crippling, debilitating diseases, from blindness to Parkinson's to Huntington's, all this shit.
Yeah, I got you.
Now maybe we can't, but we won't know it unless we don't try. And I fervently believe that we should try.
Sure, and I don't disagree with that. I just, on an individual level, is it something that you don't necessarily have to force people to have kids, but you can't really stop them from making this choice either, and so I don't see why it really matters.
I'm not gonna ever advocating forcing having kids.
Well, no, I know. I'm saying that that's what some, like, not you, some people on the right would say that should happen, right? Everybody should be, if you're going to get married, you should have kids, right? Kind of thing. But you can't stop people from making these choices regardless. So what does it really matter on an individual level? Like, right. This isn't something, I don't think that this is a thing that people are doing necessarily on a level that
it's a pride thing. It's a pride thing. I don't think it's like every right winger is like, we need to force people to have babies. I think it's a pride thing in some of the ways that I just kind of outlined, in that if you believe that you are a good person, if you believe that you are a mark of good upon the world, then why would you not propagate your line to continue that when you're gone? Is that your legacy is your children, and if you instruct them in proper, values, then why would you not continue that?
But is your legacy your own children biologically, or can they be children you've adopted or fostered or otherwise helped raise in some capacity?
That's the big kicker, right? Do you remember how I said that the great battle of the 21st century would be, what is the difference between a people and its culture?
Sure.
That, I think, is going to be the macro or the micro level of this. We're going to revisit a lot of the things that we dispensed with in the last century, because we saw where some of it went. It was horrible. But I think with things like genetic engineering, it's going to come back with a vengeance too, where we're going to have to evaluate, are certain behaviors like genetically encoded, are certain things innate to a particular person because of their heritage, or is it that 90% of this is all socialization? I have no idea, but I'm willing to bet that all of this is coming back with a vengeance this century.
It's going to come back with a vengeance. I just don't. To get back to okay, so all this stuff is going to come back, and it already is, because there's a whole host of issues when it comes to genetic modification of humans. First and foremost is that if you allow it to happen based on money, all you're doing is cementing intergenerational inequality. Right? Is that a good thing? Are you going to end up creating a permanent underclass of people that can't afford the genetic modifications because you just have one generation after another where rich people just keep getting better and better and better, and the poor people can never afford it? Right? That's basically the whole plot of Gattaca. And I don't care if anybody tells me I'm wrong, because I'm not. I freaking went back and read the entire freaking movie, basically, and that is essentially the plot of Gattaca. Fucking fight me over it, okay?
No, like that is one of the biggest reservations that people have levied against the possible future of genetic engineering, is that what happens if we just make it to where the rich in their current iteration achieve escape velocity to where the average person will no longer be able to keep pace with them. There's two thoughts here that I have with this. Number one, we may have actually reached that already due to innovation. Or no, I'm sorry, not innovation, automation. But that's a whole other conversation. The other conversation, the other part of that is that it comes down to hard limiting in regards to if you can modify the human genome. What is I'll put it this way, what is the multiplier that you can give people to make them superior or better capable? Can you make them 10% smarter, or can you make them twice as smart? If it's one of these deals to where we find out we can edit the human genome, but we can probably only make people 30% or less, I'm not too worried, because I think that will proliferate in time. And quite honestly, I don't expect rich people to actually be the ones to let their kids be the test subjects first. I think they'll actually make poor people the test babies first, unironically. So there is going to be a leg up.
Of course it's going to do that, and that person will just become one of the elites by happenstance. But ultimately, that if this is not done from an ethical standpoint where these questions are being asked, they are being asked, mind you. Everybody watching this, these questions are being asked, they're being debated. There's some great philosophical debates happening within the communities here, especially with genetic modifications. It's just policy-wise, it's not there yet. There isn't any laws on the books, and that might be a problem. So, yeah. I don't remember how we got here.
We were talking about news stories, and somehow turns the news roundup into who is Cypher and Tiberius.
Fair enough. No, I do. Just to get back onto just this subject a little bit. So, I think the primary driver right now for a lot of lefties not wanting to have kids is the fear of climate change. If the world is going to basically be a hellscape for humanity by 2050, everybody that has a kid now is going to experience that. And if you believe that that is what's going to happen, and you believe that you should not bring a child into the world that has to suffer through that, then you're not going to have a child. And that's the primary driver of that. As far as go ahead.
I was just going to say, I definitely get that. I kind of don't agree with it, but it's for a completely different point of context.
I mean, so for me, I understand the argument. I don't believe that's actually what's going to happen, not because climate change isn't real, but because humans are a parasite, and so we'll figure something out to stay alive, and it won't be a hellscape for us. The planet will be on fire, but humans will be okay in a bubble. A lot of death and suffering is going to happen, but there's going to be, most of the people are going to be okay.
So my whole thing here, for just the audience sake, simply just boils down to this. I believe that humans are incredibly flawed. We're screwed up, right? I don't dissuade from some of these anti-natalist arguments. I really don't. But what I do come down to is that humans are incredibly innovative, and when given an opportunity, we will take the opportunity. Doesn't mean that we will succeed in making them a course, but we will damn well try. And every time that you have a new person born in this world, you know what? Bad things can happen. Yeah, I don't dissuade from that. But also good things can happen. And quite frankly, the more of us that are here and able and equipped to take on the fight that is climate change, the better off I think that we're going to be, not the less.
Gotcha. No, I agree with that. And then the other part is that there are some people that worry that their own intergenerational trauma will be passed on to their children, and so those people aren't comfortable having kids because they don't know if they can raise them properly. They might think that they themselves are great and are actually moral, upstanding people, but they know how they were raised and they know how that transfers over, and they don't trust themselves necessarily to do that properly. And then some people just don't want to have kids. Like, just from like a biological standpoint, they just don't want kids. Like, ew, baby's gross. Like, that's just a lot of people. That's not a lot of people, but that's a lot of people. So.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that actually. Is that there's just a lot of people that are like, man, I wasn't raised right. I don't want to do that to my kids. That'd be awful. Yeah. And I get it and I respect it, but there's a level where I'm like, if anything, one, I think you recognize that like raising kids is a very daunting task.
Yep.
And if you're like, you know what, dad didn't raise me right or mom didn't raise me, then you see yourself making the same mistakes. There's a level where I'm like, one, I think a lot of people have ridiculously high standards for parents, to be honest. And two, is that when it comes to making the same mistakes, is that I think you realize how akin we are to our parents or our forebears. Is that they weren't perfect. We're not any more perfect, which is why I hate people who consistently act like that we're just of this really high moral playing field right now, and how the people of the past are just completely immoral bastards. And I'm like, morals evolve over time. They get better, or at least I think they usually get better. But someone has to be that poor bastard whose shoulders you stand on to get there.
Yep.
Anyway, next story.
I guess the next story we could talk about, because I want to kind of do like a little longer thing for like the whole Pelosi attack and stuff like that. Like, I got clips and stuff that I want to get through. You want to talk about the Kanye West to it? I'm trying to find the clip of him saying the doctor thing. Although, would that get me banned from Twitch? I don't know. I think I found a clip. Did you want to talk about that though? Oh no, did I lose you?
Yes, no, you didn't. I was just dropping off an order.
Oh, no problem.
The answer is, would I like to talk about it? Yes. And I have some very, very poignant things to say about this, because I'm very deeply concerned.
Deeply concerned about Kanye West's mental health abilities? Deeply concerned about the anti-Semitism? Anything?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Pelosi.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I want to talk about the Pelosi stuff as well, but that's going to be a little more long form than a convo, because there's some videos and stuff I wanted to share, because I wanted to get into the Tucker Carlson. Actually, I can probably just record that later. Can I splice it in? Yeah, I can splice it in. I could probably splice it in.
Whatever works for you.
I'm not streaming to YouTube right now anyways. So people, well, let's go through a little spiel. So, hey everybody, this is the Crowdsourced Politics News Roundup. If you're just joining me tonight, we are having a conversation with Tyberius D about all things news related that happened over the last week. Talking about a lot of stuff. We talked about like eugenics and people not having babies and demographics, and what did we start on? We started on I don't even remember what we started on, but it was a lot of topics.
We started on vaccines. Yeah, we started on vaccines.
We started on vaccines, yeah. So a lot of stuff. We started on the whole COVID amnesty thing, right? And this is how the news roundup goes when I have guests on, because there's a lot to cover, there's a lot to talk about, but it's going to be more conversational. So that's what we're doing tonight. Doing more conversational piece rather than just spitting out just news facts at you. So if you're like what you're hearing, you can check this out every Thursday starting roughly at about 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and goes roughly until about 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We were doing from 7:30 to 10-ish or so, but we're going back to 8 because I've been getting off work later. So I need some more time to prep for when I get home. So that's what we're doing that now. So if you like it, hey, be sure to follow us on frick. It went away. There it is, Discord. So let me remove this one. Remove that one. All right. So go ahead and be sure to follow us on Twitter at Crowdsource Poll. Even though Elon Musk bought Twitter, which we talked about a little bit, we're still on there. Nothing's changed yet, and we're eager to see how it goes. And also, please go ahead and smash that like button for the algorithms. It really, really does help us out. That's how you can help us out all with that. So appreciate it. Appreciate everything and everything like that. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take the conversation I'm having with Tiberius D, and I'm going to slice it in with some of the stuff that I want to talk about specifically when we post it on YouTube. So the YouTube clip will be a little bit longer than what you're going to get here, simply because we're trying to produce different kind of content for our YouTube channel, because we're actually getting some cannibalism on it a little bit. People were actually catching the live episode on YouTube and not seeing it on Twitch, and vice versa, and it was hurting our numbers. So we're trying to boost those numbers up by separating it out a bit and doing more long form produced content on YouTube and more live unproduced raw content on Twitch. So that's what we're doing now. So what happened? So long story short, I'm sure everybody knows about this. Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked at their San Francisco home because a deranged lunatic that was hyped up on conspiracy theories decided that it was time to take Nancy Pelosi out, and he went there with the intent on making her pay. She was not there. Paul Pelosi was there. He was roused out of his bed at 2:30 in the morning by this person, DePepe, breaking into the back room, into his house, which set off the security alarm. He went downstairs to see what was going on and was accosted by this man. Managed to call 911 either via the phone calling him from the security system or whatever. Police show up, and as they show up, they see him and DePepe fighting over a hammer, and DePepe whacks him over the head with a hammer. So that's what happened. Okay. Now, what didn't happen is what a lot of right-wingers are saying, which is that Paul Pelosi was actually involved in a lover's quarrel, and that's why this happened to him. And what also didn't happen was that this was not just a random act of violence. This was a terroristic attack. I am not using this word incorrectly. Targeting somebody over their political beliefs to do violence against them in order to change their politics or affect politics at large is the definition of terrorism. We don't legally charge people in the United States with terrorism because that is a whole fucking thing when it comes to law, but that's what happened. And it is frankly disgusting and deplorable. Yes, I'm going to use the ever so succinct Hillary Clinton word for this. It was deplorable that anybody is saying anything other than this attack shouldn't have happened. It was politically motivated, and this needs to stop. So Tiberius, with that framing, which I'm sure you agree with to a degree, what is it you wanted to talk about exactly? Oh no!
Well, first of all, can you hear? Yeah. First of all, how dare you be so partisan and blame the right? No, I'm kidding.
Wait, what?
First of all,
you broke up.
I was memeing, so memes be memes. The first, when it comes down to it, for me, is first and foremost is political violence is not okay. Okay, when you have a democracy, when you have people who are all vetted within the system, it doesn't matter how much you disagree. It doesn't matter if you think they're immoral as shit. When it comes down to it, it's either you tap in and you tap out, and when you tap out, you go home, you go to your families, you go to your business, what have you, and that doesn't get touched. Because if people don't respect the tap out and they take it home, you are on the doorstep of war. Second of all, the right has royally screwed up in their response to this. because their whole thing is, oh, well, Paul was engaged with gay sex or whatever the hell else. That is not the reply. The reply is this. We are not this person. We do not believe in these things. This person is mentally ill. They are deranged. They need help. This is not us. And we are sorry to the Pelosi family that they had to suffer through this catastrophe. It's all you need to do.
Yep.
And the left will absolutely make political hay out. But the thing that we as the right have to do is show the American people that we are not what the left says that we are. And when I see the narratives that are put out, and then I see that people are being like, well, it's actually the left's fault, or it's actually this, or, you know, whatever, where it's just deflecting and dodging and just not doing the right thing, they gain points. Their arguments become real. Stop being jackasses, stop being politically partisan and having the team over anything else, and simply say, this isn't us. We are very horrified to see that this happened to a political representative. As if it happened to you or me, we would be horrified and mortified. It's not okay, it's not acceptable, and it is blatantly un-American.
I 100% agree with that. I had similar sayings when there was riots over George Floyd. In fact, a lot of BLM members had similar things to say about that, trying to stop people from breaking into businesses and and stuff like that. So I don't disagree with you. I think this is raising the stakes too much. It is inflaming the country too much. And when this happens, and you have people like Charlie Kirk saying, hey, bail him out and interview him because this isn't the story, all you're doing is driving, and you're making Tim Pool hard, because you're giving credence to the fact that there is going to be a civil war. And we don't want that. His beanie can't contain it. I'm sorry. And I'm not even joking. Like that is exactly what Charlie Kirk said. And when I splice this in later, I'm going to put that up there. But you can see it. He was on his fucking little program, funded by fucking, oh god, Christian fascist, Christian nationalist, whatever the fuck you want to call him. I don't give a shit anymore. And yeah, he was saying that shit. He was saying that that's not the story that we're having. Elon Musk, taking it back to the old Muskie boy, shared the same fake news story that the right is inflamed about, giving it credence because now he owns Twitter. It's insane. It's insane. There's also other stuff here. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about, and I want your opinion on this, Tiberius. Can you hear me? I don't know when you're engaged.
I'm still here.
Okay. So one of the things I wanted your opinion on this is, like, there is a, let's just say, a crazy to opposite crazy pipeline. I don't like using the word crazy. Conspiratorial to other conspiratorial pipeline that happens here. And part of the reason why a lot of people on the right are saying that he was not at all a right winger is because in his earlier years, he was pretty lefty. He was what some people would say was a little crunchy. It was kind of a little bit of hippie, kind of a little bit of a wayward son, a little bit of a druggy boy. And they don't want to be associated with that. Even though, you know, people change often. And this is one of those instances where he did. Like, he was a truther that is now a QAnoner. There was another person that was kind of like that. Seem to remember, he's kind of famous. Goes by the name of Alex Jones, I think. Yeah, that's who it was. Alex Jones started off as a 9/11 truther. Now, to be fair, Alex Jones was always a little bit more on the right, but that's where he got his start. So I don't know. What are your thoughts, Tiberius?
Two things. Number one, do not ever shame people for politically moving, even if it's to the extreme, because yours truly used to be a leftist. yours truly voted for not only voted but campaigned in the state of Indiana to make sure that Bernie Sanders was on the ballot, and is one of the 100,000 signatures in Indiana to have Senator Bernie Sanders as a presidential contender at the Indiana ballot. Okay, so first and foremost, yes, don't ever shun people. Huh?
What year?
I can't remember. I think we had to file in late 2015 or early 2016. I don't remember.
Gotcha.
But my signature is one of the 100,000 that is on the signing form to have him on the state ballot. And I campaigned. I went to the state house when it was submitted, all the way up in Indianapolis. I believed in this, right? I voted for Hillary in 2016. Since then, I moved right. And when it came down to the 2020 election, while I do not like Donald Trump, and I thought Joe Biden was a wuss, I pulled the trigger on Donald Trump. I have since regretted that decision, but also I would have not have been happy with either choice either way. But the long and the short is this. Do not condemn those for moving, especially if they move a little closer to you. But call a spade a spade. Crazy is crazy. Doesn't matter if it's right-wing crazy or left-wing crazy. That's what shouldn't be entertained.
No, I agree with that. I don't have any I don't care if people move. Well, okay. I'm a bit of a partisan, so I care that people move, but I want them to move closer to my side, so I'm not going to begrudge people for moving. So good point. And Changebox says, "LOL, how did I find you here, Ty? I know you're not able to see the chat right now, so I figured I'd give you the heads up that he's watching."
Yeah, Changebox is a wonderful patron of my community. He actually sent me a pickaxe that I've been needing to tear up my yard with. So thank you very much, Changebox. And I thought that maybe you had paid attention to the comment or the content posts within my server, and that's how you got here. But apparently, you just migrated on here because you weren't paying attention. So shame on thee. But we always appreciate having you here either way.
Appreciate the shout out as well. Yeah, but the thing that I'm curious about though, and I wanted to have an actual conversation is that why does it seem to be that people that buy into one conspiracy end up buying into them all? And why does it seem to be that they end up finding a home among the right wing more often than not? And I say more often than not in the American context. We can talk about other countries and them finding left-winger conspiracies and stuff like that. But yeah.
I got three thoughts to this. Number one is a blatant distrust of people, institutions, elites, what have you. And so it gets to a point where they have a very particular view of the world, and it leads them to look at things in a very particular way that leads them to, once they start connecting the dots in one way, connect the dots in all the other ways. Second of all, this is actually a horrific fault of humans, is that we all are built to identify pattern recognition, but that does not mean that just because we identify a pattern means that it actually exists. This is why a lot of the mistakes in history that have been made were people making assumptions that were incorrect. And so we make the wrong decisions. And this is a thing that we all do very, very well, unfortunately we do. But it is a thing. Third and final part here, about the political part. I know plenty of crazy-ass left-wingers, but when it comes down to it, their lunacy, if you want to put it in that particular regard, is a lot more grounded in that they just tend to hate rich people, and most of the things that they accuse rich people of are kind of true at their base rate. There's iotas of it, to the degree where it's like rich people own the system and gain the system. Well, yes, they do, and they always have. a little bit real. The right tends to screw up because the extreme right, always has a hard loyalty and purity dynamic, and anything that that is against that is where uh, is where they tend to go to hell, because the left's big failing is equality. If anything's openly unequal, then that's the fault of the system. That's the fault of the elites extorting everybody and whatnot. But the ironic part is that human societies are usually pretty kleptocratic, and is actually true. The right is just always looking for infiltrators. And the problem with infiltrators is that it's easy to say anyone who is different than you is a possible infiltrator. But more often than not, the people that infiltrate a society are the ones that are within it already.
Okay. Do you think it has anything to do with the fact that, in general, not to broad brush too much here, that lefty people are less likely to believe in, I'll say, spiritual evil and spiritual good than right-leaning people are? Do you think it's got like a religious component to it to a degree?
Actually, no.
Okay.
I'm literally just going to double back into what I said earlier. It's that what the moral axioms that the left really digs in on is that they have their crazies and their cuckoos to where they're like the rich people are all in it to get it to screw us all over. That's not really true when you get down to it. The rich hate the rich. They fight constantly. They don't agree on jack shit. But the issue is that almost every human society has a pretty sizable level of kleptocracy, to where the rich are able to corner themselves, or corner the markets, and corner the institutions to where only they can participate in. So they're just by default kind of more often right than wrong when it comes to their crazies.
Okay.
The right tends to have the issue where, like, they can pick on people for not spiritually aligning with them, but the issue is that they view that anybody who is spiritually different, ethnically different, at their extremes, this is not the majority of the right, just at the extreme, when they get to that level, anyone who is not part of the kin group, which is very small for these folks, is an infiltrator or an enemy. And so they see enemies everywhere.
Okay. So it's a trust issue.
It always is a trust issue.
Right.
Well, both for the left and the right, it's always a trust issue. The problem basically comes down to the left doesn't trust rich people, and the problem is that's just a wise thing to fucking do if you are poor or middle class, is that the rich people don't have your interests, and that's a really easy argument to make, and they're right, versus the right is saying that anyone who doesn't look like us, doesn't talk like us, doesn't believe in our values, doesn't believe in our God, is an infiltrator. And while that is actually a very natural human response, is that we have moved into an era where we know that is blatantly untrue.
Okay. No, I can see that. It's just interesting to me that we're reliving Satan panic right now. And it's not as broadly politically accepted as it was in the 80s.
There is always satanic panic in every society in every regard. You look at history at all, you're always seeing the conservative or like the institutional forces scared shitless of the next big trend. And then sooner or later you have the real trends pop off and you have like revolutionary changes. But that's a whole thing for another day. Crap, there was one thing that I wanted to get into. I kind of went brain dead there for a second. What was it? I don't remember. I'm so sorry. If it comes back to me, I'll let you know.
No, it's all good. Just, I don't know. The reason I ask about that is because, yes, there's always some sort of moral panic, but a moral panic doesn't necessarily take on spiritual connotations. And right now it is. And it's doing it in almost the exact same manner as it did in the 80s. And the difference, though, is that there's less political overlap between the broader political polities of conservative and liberal. And there was more of it. There was more overlap back in the 80s than there is now. And the only explanation I can come up with that is that left-leaning people are less religious now than they were in the past.
Yes. I overwhelmingly agree with this. Like, Satanic Panic was a pain in the ass. Like, oh my god, Magic the Gathering is ruining our children. It's a joke, and I don't understand it. But the actual panic now among the religious community is very well warranted. Their children and their grandchildren are either having a very passive relationship with the religion and they're not going to church, or they're openly becoming an atheist like yours truly. And they're watching their numbers and their institutions die horribly. Yeah, I would probably panic too if this is something I cared about.
But they are panicking in the sense that they believe that liberals are a satanic cult drinking the blood of children and also trying to turn them gay.
Yeah, I get that. And while I don't agree with it, what it just basically comes down to is that these folks have a very particular lens in which they view the world. And anyone who doesn't fit into that lens or doesn't look through the lens in the same regard so that they can engage in the same conversations are naturally seen as, I wouldn't openly just say evil, but they are actually, they are openly seen as potential threats.
Useful idiots, politically speaking, or spiritually speaking, I guess.
There. Well, it basically just comes down.
I mean, it's useful idiot in this context has a particular meaning. It means that you're not necessarily being fooled, but you're repeating the same talking points that you've heard from elsewhere and not understanding what's actually underneath it. And that's what they would see, right? Or at least that's the gist that I get from them, is that not that every single liberal is a evil and immoral person that's engaging in this, but they've been blinded by Satan and ergo are helping him by being a useful idiot.
So I think I get where you're going. Unfortunately, I was also picking up at the same time, so I didn't get everything. Where it really comes down to me, when I engage with these folks, is that they believe in kind of like I call it like a biblical codex, but moreover like an order of like spiritual law, to where they're raised Christian and you have to be Christian to have the proper morals, right? Now don't get the conversation started on if they're Catholic or Protestant or Lutheran or whatever the hell else, because that's it. But they're generally just like, if you are not Christian, then you can't have good morals because you weren't raised with the correct set of instructions. I get it. I don't approve of it, but I think it makes some level of sense. And as much as I hate people who pander or peddle this particular idea or philosophy or what have you, particularly like you all remember Steve Harvey, who runs Family Feud, actually got very either famous or infamous, whichever one, for saying that. Is that yeah, I kind of understand it. I just don't agree with it. Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're delivering, I think so. Can you hear me? Oh,
yeah, I should have just had it where. Yeah, I was gonna say I should have had it to where you couldn't hear me picking up an order.
You did mute yourself for a second. Oh.
Oh, okay. Well, my mistake. But anyway, yeah. The long and short here is that, they're just like, hey, you aren't raised with the Christian, background. Then how could you possibly have good morals? And I can explain it to them, or at least I think I can. Although they won't always believe me, and they always kind of see me as a potential rival or threat. But there is just that kind of ground level that is really hard to engage with if you don't understand it.
Gotcha. And to change box, to say to tell you where this came from, I actually had to Google it. So I'm looking at Wikipedia on my other screen right now. It's where my head is turned. It actually started with a book called Michelle Remembers, and it was written by a psychologist who then married this woman that he was he was seeing. He was psychoanalyzing, which is in and of itself immoral for the most part. About the ability to recover memories, and then with that she had sweeping lurid claims about satanic ritual abuse involving her. The allegations, which afterwards arose throughout much of the United States, involved reports of physical and sexual abuse of people in the context of occult or satanic rituals. It was all about pretty much every kind of thing that's being claimed about now. This was specifically published the book was published in 1980, and that's when it started, essentially. According to Wikipedia. I trust Wikipedia on this because this is one of those situations that's been looked at so much that the crowd is going to end up being more right about it than not. And then there was also the McMartian preschool trials, which did the exact same thing. And there's a movie on this. It's a wonderful movie, and it will make you furious and never want to trust people ever again. But what it essentially was is that this movie, the McMartin preschool, was using the same kind of practice of trying to recover suppressed memories from children. And these kids were pressured into saying that they were actually abused by their preschool watchers. And it all started because of one parent's distrust of a young man actually working at the school. And
was this the event? Was this the event that happened in the late 80s going into the early 90s? And yes. I think it was Texas where there was... Okay, yeah. I remember the story.
So I don't know if it was Texas, but yeah. Go ahead. I'm gonna read it. Read it from there.
Yeah, just the long and the short of it was, if I've got the right thing, is that there was
It was California.
A claim, huh?
It was in California.
Okay, I figured it was a big state. I thought it was, anyway. There was a claim that some students were being abused, and so you basically had the authorities going to these very young kids. These are like literally kindergartners, if I remember. And they're like, hey, was there anything wrong? But the way that they asked questions prodded them in ways to openly say yes to things that were blatantly not true. And so they got into this situation of where they literally made a self-inflicted witch hunt.
You cut out there the last bit.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it was a self-inflicted witch hunt when it came down to it. Because they literally... I don't know if this is the correct term, but like literally gaslight their own kids into believing they were abused.
No, that's essentially what happened. The whole thing was like revealing suppressed memories, is that you get somebody into enough of a lucid state that they become very suggestive. And because you're using techniques such as hypnosis, you can actually implant false memories, especially in younger children, to where they actually believe that this happened. Yeah. It is very bad. And now, I watched the movie. I didn't really read much about it, but the movie is like kind of like this docudrama kind of thing. Not docudrama, but like based on real life dramatization of this. And one of the things that the movie did very well is like show how the kids were being led to like say more outlandish things to basically get rewards. And one of them's like, hey, how did you, where did the abuse happen? And the kid was like, it was on an airplane without windows. And then the person would be like, well, last week you said it was in a car wash. And the kid would be like, oh yeah, it was in both. Like, it was that level of absurdity.
Right.
And the prosecution didn't reveal that. They only revealed the stuff that they could have some semblance of claim to, and these things didn't come out until the appeal process went through. But at that point, it already cemented in the consciousness of the entire United States. And so people were like, I can't trust anybody. If you can't trust a preschool teacher, who can you trust? And now kids are listening to their rock music and their devil metal. What's going on? Oh my God, it must be Satan. And it all started, and this particular case started when and I hate to put it in these terms, but a seemingly vindictive ex blamed her ex-husband for abuse of her child. That's how it started.
Oh my God.
Yep. In 1983, Judy Johnson, mother of one of the Manhattan Beach, California preschool young students, reported to police that her son had been sodomized by her estranged husband and also by McMartin's teacher, Ray Buckey. Ray Buckey was the grandson of the school founder, Virginia McMartin, and son of administrator Peggy McMartin Buckey. Johnson's belief that her son had been abused began when her son had painful bowel movements. What happened next is still disputed. Some sources say that at the time, Johnson's son denied her suggestion that the preschool teacher had molested him, where others say he confirmed the abuse. In addition, Johnson also made several more accusations, including that people at the daycare center had sexual encounters with animals, that Peggy drilled a child under the arm, and that Ray flew in the air. Deranged shit. How did anybody believe this? I have no fucking idea. Ray Buckey was questioned, but also not prosecuted due to the lack of evidence. The police then sent a form letter to about 200 parents of students at McMartin School, stating their children may have been abused. So the police failed on this as well. Hey, your son or daughter might have been abused. You should go look at this. We don't have evidence of it, but, better safe than sorry. And asking the parents to question their children. Continuing on, several hundred children were then interviewed by the Children's Institute International, or CII, a Los Angeles-based abuse therapy clinic run by Key McFarlane. The interviewing techniques used during investigations of the allegations were highly suggestive and invited children to pretend or speculate about supposed events. By spring of 1984, it was claimed that 360 children had been abused. Astrid Hipstall-Hegner performed medical examinations and took photos of what she believed to be minute scarring. Again, a medical examiner was primed to believe that this happened, so they looked for evidence to confirm what they've been primed to believe happened. Leading to false accusations. Others believe that the questioning itself may have led to false memory syndrome among children questioned. Only 41 of the original 360 children ultimately testified in the grand jury and pretrial hearings, and fewer than a dozen testified at the actual trial. Michael P. Maloney, a clinical psychologist and professor of psychiatry, reviewed videotapes of the children's interviews. Maloney, testifying as an expert witness on interviewing children, was highly critical of the techniques used, referring to them as improper, coercive, directive, problematic, and adult-directed, in a way that forced children to follow a rigid script. He concluded that, quote, many of the kids' statements in interviews were generated by the examiner. Transcripts and recordings of the interviews contained, let me pull it over here. I lost my place now. Contained many, okay. Transcripts and recordings of the interview contained far more speech from adults than children and demonstrated that despite the highly coercive interviewing techniques used, initially the children were resistant to the interview's attempts to elicit disclosure. The recordings of the interviews were instrumental in the jury's refusal to convict by demonstrating how children could be coerced to giving vivid and dramatic testimonies without having experienced actual abuse. The techniques used were shown to be contrary to existing guidelines in California for investigations of cases involving children and child witnesses. So yeah. And the stuff I talked about fly, like that, all that stuff happened. Like it happened in a car wash, it was a bus without windows. Like it happened all these places. Like these are the things the kids started to talk about. To give you some context. And Changebox is right. Mass psychosis is a real thing. Essentially what happened during the Salem witch trials as well. I don't think you could have that kind of mass panic like that without a religious component. I just don't. Now that's not to say that the left-wingers can't be religious in themselves. There are people saying that they've practiced blood magic. Expound upon what? Expound upon what? Changebox. I don't know what you're referring to because chat's a little lagged. Oh, about the religious component? Yeah, I just you have to believe in like spiritual. Okay, so you have to believe. I believe that like this level, like mass psychosis, is something that happens, but this particular mass psychosis can only really be believed and actually have credence if you have a spiritual component of it that says that the supernatural is real. And so, like, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be religious per se, but you do have to have a spiritual understanding of the world where there is ultimate good and ultimate evil that are fighting over souls or what have you. Because you're not going to believe that people can fly if you don't have this. You're not going to believe that the Satan exists if you don't have this. You have to have something like that. So I don't see it like I said, it isn't the main that lefties are immune to this. Like I said, there's a lot of people out there right now, especially religious or not religious, spiritual lefties that believe that they can practice blood magic and go on to witch TikTok. They'll have a good time. I think saying spiritualism is more apt than saying religious. Because religion has like a comprehensive moral doctrine than a spiritual component does. This isn't to say that you can't manifest things, like if you believe something hard enough that you can't make it happen. Like that's probably some truth to that. Like, but yeah. Do I think that people are necessarily practicing blood magic and then getting people like fall in love with them? No, I don't think so.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to the most wondrous and far out episode of the CSP News Roundup here and only here on Crowdsource Politics.
Thanks, Ty.
You're welcome. But memes aside, it is all fun. One of the things that I did want to say earlier that kind of popped back into my mind is that I have many reservations to the left, and I also have many reservations to the right. But the big thing that I think really screwed the right was Reagan. And it wasn't that he wasn't like a pretty cool cat back during the 80s. I don't disagree with a lot of what he did while he was in president. But the issue of his legacy was that he tried to steer people away from the institutions that FDR created. He wanted people to be like, hey, look, we asked the government to do a lot. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is the road to hell for us if we keep going down it. I don't disagree with that analysis. But his prescription is that he made people very distrusting of the institutions and of government, where he'd do the old joke. It's like, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. And instead of making it to where we had a questionable and reasonable respect for civil servants, is that anybody who was largely competent backed out, which is how all your kids became screaming leftists, but also in the regard that when it comes to the vast majority of distrust within the right wing, it is a carryover and an exacerbation of that initial seeds of distrust that were sown, to where it's like, part one was, hey, you shouldn't believe the people who are in government. And then, of course, the right got screwed because of some of the decisions that were actually made by the Reagan administration, particularly in the expounding of globalization and free trade. And so when it came full circle, the people that they were supposed to be led by, whether out of ignorance or malice, and I think it was more ignorance than anything, screwed them. They openly were told not to trust the people who were kind of the opposition, which is reasonable, I guess, but now they don't trust the institutions. And so now the right is turning to anybody and everyone who can take a hammer at something that looks stable, productive, and prosperous. That has to stop.
I had to agree to that, and it only got worse with Trump.
Trump was not the cause.
No,
Trump
I said
was
it got
the
worse. Got worse with Trump.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Like that's the thing. Like this is where I think the left really needs a wake up call in what they're dealing with. Trump will not be the end. Trump is I'm not gonna say he's the beginning either. Trump is the manifestation of how pissed off the right is with how, one, they feel that they've been treated, but more particularly in how horrific their lives have gotten in the last 30 years.
No, I agree. I entirely agree with this. And there was actually a great Some More News episode that just aired recently that talked about something I was going to talk about. But they beat me to the punch this time. I've beaten them to the punch a couple of times, just to say. No, I like to toot my own horn just a little bit because we do good work here, and it's highly underappreciated. Not a lot of people know us because I don't pay for advertising, basically. But there is a person that Peter Thiel has been funding named Curtis Yarvin, and Curtis Yarvin is a monarchist. And he wants to see the entire administrative state, similar to Steve Bannon, destroyed and replaced by a CEO, essentially. He doesn't like to use dictator because it has negative connotations, but he'll say a CEO top-down mindset to make America work more like a business. And you get your people in there to do what you want, and everybody else can go fuck themselves. And that is coming out of the right wing a lot more. And it's not going
I don't know
away.
if this guy's worse. I don't know if this guy's worse than Grover Norquist, because both of these ideas are horrific, but kind of wondering if I haven't talked to this guy, because I know somebody who actually has this idea. And I'm like, I'm sorry, if you actively support monarchy in the 21st century, you need help.
Well, he's the intellectual brains behind the New Right's love affair with it.
Well,
blogged
we're
under
screwed.
the name of Mixus Moldbug. Philosophical movement known as Dark Enlightenment or Neo-Reactionary Movement. Unqualified reservations started in 92. No, wait. Protestant from funded the Urbit computer platform for decentralized networking. Neo-reactionary blogging, Dark Enlightenment, alt-right, views on race. Yeah. Pretty sure this is the guy.
Right. Yeah, so on one side, I've got people that are saying things like, hey, we need to reform the social contract. And I'm like, yeah, kind of, base. And then it's like, oh, yeah, we need to revert back to literally 1840. No, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe have a conversation about some of the institutions we put in the 1940s. You can have a conversation about, but nah, democracy, republics, those are pretty cool. We like those.
And it really reveals kind of the plot when people say we're not a democracy, we're a republic. Because what they mean by that is
yeah,
they mean that a small cadre of elites that they agree with control things to keep the rest of us in check. That's what they mean. That's why it's been pushed.
I don't I get that. Like, I'm literally one of those guys that thinks it's actually intelligent. I think the average voter is a moron. But the problem is that the same people who are advocating this are also morons. So square that circle for me.
Oy, I can't square it, man. It's all bullshit.
Yeah, well,
Now, one of the other things, I don't want to get off the Pelosi topic because we haven't talked a lot about it. We talked a lot about the things that surrounded it, but we haven't talked about the Pelosi thing and Republicans generally. Like we've said some things, but one of the things that I thought was interesting about the particular person that did this, De Pepe, was that he says that GamerGate started with GamerGate. You remember GamerGate, I assume?
Bit. Yeah.
Okay. Why do you think that had such a pull with people?
I'll put it this way. Gamers are a very interesting folks. They're generally, or they tend to be very libertarian, truthfully, because they literally just rather sit in a room and play video games all day. And then as long as you don't accept or like upset their order, they're fine. But they've almost turned into full-blown reactionaries because of people like, or what's her name? Anita Sarkeesian. I can't remember what her first name is.
Anita Sarkeesian.
There was a few people in the mid 2010s who permeated into the gamer sphere and had, by what we would call, very woke narratives. And the gamers overwhelmingly said, fuck this, we are not interested. And ever since then, that entire group of people went from being one of the most unengaged, disenchanted groups of people to where like the political process didn't even knew they existed, to being some of the most ardent supporters of, well, you probably hate these people, Donald Trump, what's his name? Sargon of Akkad.
Yep.
I can't remember his real name. You know,
Carl
the whole
Benjamin.
game. Yes, thank you. Like the whole group of them, just like literally 80% of them activated politically, and they're like, all right, the moment that these pricks come in and put women into my games in the Chinese era when they clearly don't belong in there, because they're actually, ironically enough, like a lot of them are like autistically good historians. They're like, I don't want your woke revisionist bullshit. And they went from 0 to 100 is what 90% of these people do. So, do I fault any of them for that? Not really, but I do think that they completely jumped the shark. So
I have thoughts and theories about this. Did you ever watch anything? Did you watch Feminist Frequency? You watch any of the videos?
I think I did once or twice, but I what I just remember is that I was one of those people who really didn't like Anita from the start. I could smell the agenda, coming off of it, and more particularly
that was the whole, because so Feminist Frequency was never meant to be apolitical, so it was always supposed to have an agenda.
Right. I'm not.
It was media critique.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I'm not saying that like I didn't excuse me. I'm not saying that I didn't respect what like that there was not an objective. But I saw this, and maybe like I'm going to go hard right here for a second. But this was an interloper. This was somebody that was infiltrating something.
I didn't hear you.
Okay, I said this was an interloper for me.
Interloper.
Because I felt the same way that a lot of the other gamers did. This is a person who probably, and honestly, I don't believe really even played video games, but wanted something to bitch about, and actively engaged in a fight to where they really didn't belong in.
I have no reason to disbelieve that she's played games. At the same time, it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters.
Fair.
Because what she was engaged in was a media critique. And you don't have to be a person that writes movies to critique movies. You don't have to be a person that writes journalism to critique journalism. In fact, many of the right-wing journalists started just with media critique. Them being interlopers is kind of the point. They're supposed to be able to look at this from the outside with a different perspective.
Yeah,
so that
I don't disagree
pissed
with that.
Anybody off, honestly.
Like, and so here's the problem. like it's the people that you're dealing with. Gamers are a very either tight knit and both hostile community, and it falls into two categories. Like if you're talking to gamers, as in like Call of Duty players, those are like a bunch of angsty like 12-year-olds that really shouldn't be playing these games, but they are anyway. We're not talking about them. We're talking about people who are largely now, almost in their 30s or are in their 30s and have been playing like Star Wars TIE Fighter back in 1997 on their custom built PC. Right?
Sure.
These people have largely been they're very libertarian. They're very communal in the regards that they are kind of seen as a collective of black sheep between themselves, and they have found community. They have found some friends and some purpose and all this. Whether it's literally, just popular games like World of Warcraft or what have you. Thank you very much. Is that they had a very normalized world that they had had for a very long time. And then Anita questioned it, which I don't think was unwarranted, but she came in with it like a hammer into people's, if you want to call it this, safe spaces. And the reaction to that was from people who felt like, for most of their lives, that they had been ostracized, that they weren't accepted in mainstream society. And then, I'm going to be very rude here for a second, then comes this bitch to fuck it all up.
I mean, that's a perfectly fair look at it. So I would have considered myself a gamer until this moment. That's the thing.
Okay.
When GamerGate happened, I'm like, I don't want to be associated with these dickholes. It's like why I started going to 4chan, right? I'm too old to be considered a netizen, basically, or a digital native. I'm a little too old for that necessarily. My first MMO was RuneScape or Ultima Online, though, so that shows you how old I am. But
old.
I'm an elder millennial.
No, you're good.
But the whole thing though is that like I saw these spaces becoming the shit spaces that they are now, and decided not to engage with them.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the Tucker Max message boards and actually looked for advice on how to meet women and talk to women. Like that was me. I was one of these people that could have easily fallen into this miasma and not come out the other side. Could have. I didn't. And the reason I didn't is because I saw it for what it was. And these people didn't, for whatever reason. And I don't know. Like, when I watched the Anita stuff, the Anita Sarkeesian feminist frequency videos, the ones that were free, I didn't back her on Kickstarter. I wasn't kickstarting anything at that point. I've since kickstarted some projects. Some of them have been pretty cool. There was one that was called Black. It's a comic that basically kind of reimagines the like what if black people were the only ones with superpowers and everyone, all the government knew about it and were secretly using them and other things. Was kind of interesting. So there's that, and there was like another one. There's some games I backed and stuff like that ended up failing. One of them I actually invested in as a company, and then they ended up rug pulling, which is fun. But that's a very long tangent. Anyways, I watch these things and I'm like, all this makes sense. Why would anybody have a problem with this? And I think what it boils down to is that the vast majority of people don't do any kind of self-analysis, self-critique, self-examination. And then when somebody comes in and does that, when they're not going to do that themselves, they get very reactive. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of it. And then the other side of it, and this is what I saw happening, is that I saw people, for lack of a better term, Bannonites, going through and recruiting them and melding their politics by giving them an ear. Not only giving them an ear, but saying what you're saying is correct. And not only is it correct, they want you to suffer. And that drew people in. You're not getting women, not because you're this is what they would say, a morbidly obese loser. You're not getting women because of feminism. Your games are perfectly acceptable. They just want to take them away from you. The reason why you can't make it in this world is because women took your job. And a lot of gamers were very attracted to that messaging. And liberals and lefties were not ready to counter it because they didn't see it happening. Because the ones that did were too young to do anything, and the ones that could have done anything were too old to see it happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. And whether you call it like political like scheming, Bannon's outreach to the gamer community was a coup for them.
Yep.
Because they found a lot of people who were ardent who became very, very strong supporters. At least in fervor. The long and the short, though, is that I'll put it in this regard: if there's any groups of people that are like traumatized to where like they have legitimate grievances with folks that have been activated, whether it's trans folks, gay folks, what have you, the number one people on the right, and I can't believe I just didn't realize it until now, is gamers. Gamers were treated like absolute fucking shit in this country until probably the last decade, and they found themselves some spaces where they got pretty damn comfortable. But then you got into the critique thing, and this is one of the biggest reasons I think that politics has gone off the rails this decade, is that everyone has now had to deal with the critiques because of social media.
Yep.
And as powerful as the block button is that a lot of people I honestly don't believe can handle it because you can't escape it.
It's true. That's very much true. That's why this comes back around to Elon Musk. Yes, love it when it comes full circle. But this is why I don't think Elon Musk's fixes are going to actually fix anything, because it doesn't scale. Nothing scales, and as long as you don't actually prevent fake accounts from existing at large, or at least tying every account to an actual person, you're actually going to fix anything, because manufacturing consent in the age of social media is far too easy.
Ooh.
Anybody can do it. Give me 300 accounts controlled by 200 real people and 100 botters, 100 bots, and I can manufacture consent that no one would be able to know. And I'm just a guy.
Probably.
I'm not even one of the smartest people in the room that are doing this right now. It's just not happening to the level that people think it is when it comes to liberalism. Because liberals have relied on institutions to do this because they're all a bunch of old fucks. Meanwhile, the ever so forward-thinking right wing when it comes to PR saw this coming after Obama and jumped onto it feet first. They jumped off of a 30-story building and landed perfectly. And liberals and lefties are just now catching up. And there's a lot of catching up to do. But it's a lot, in a lot of ways it's too late to catch up too much. And I don't think I necessarily want liberals and lefties to catch up on it. I think I want to see it destroyed.
You heard it here, folks, first. The right wing is the resistance.
No, it's not like I get it's a joke, but it's not so much like a resistance thing so much as it's like it's narrative shaping and control, and it's easier to do that with social media than it's ever been in human history. And it's just not being done by anybody else but the right wing right now. Basically.
It's the normalized push and pull of revolution and counter-revolution. We have seen this play out literally every generation since the French Revolution in the Western world, where it's just like, all right, you know what? Politically, somebody's got to get a leg up. What's that new thing that we can do? What's that new talking point? What's that new technology? You know, both sides are going to have some affinities to make them very successful. Originally, the left had a field day with the internet. And as an example of that, a lot of the conversations like Arab Spring were a good example of like what the internet could do for like left-wing values.
Yeah.
But two things happened. Number one is that the right found the internet because the right usually tends to be a little older. And, you know, sooner or later, people who are old figured out how Facebook works and how cell phones work and shit, which is amazing because they never could program their VCRs.
Shows you how far we've come from intuitiveness. Yeah. How do you turn this up? I don't know, Grandma.
Yeah. Anyway, the long and the short though is one of the big things that is interesting to me is, has classical liberalism actually gone to the right at this point? Because there's a lot of conversations among people on the right around the slogan, and I can't remember who said it. I think it was Paul or what, Dave Rubin, I think, said this. Liberalism is now a conservative value. And there's a big conversation on the right. Huh?
I said he might have said it, but I don't believe it.
I think he did, but I could be wrong. But anyway, there's a big conversation in the right now about what to do that, because they like to blame people like, oh, this is the liberal agenda. But then when they actually talk about liberalism, they're like, well, this isn't liberalism. I'm a liberal. They're not. And it's really weird because you have people like Brett Weinstein and to some degree Dan Crenshaw, a few others, that are by most tangible effects classical liberals, or have the ideal of classical liberalism. And they're like, well, wait, does this belong in the right? And they're having some issues with it because in one regard, the right says the right things, but then the actions don't really follow suit.
Bingo. And who's in charge of the right now? Not people that are classically
no one right
liberal.
now.
Well, okay, fair. But I think Trump has the most sway, and Trump is not a classically liberal guy. He's a force of nature. He doesn't give a shit about anything but himself. True.
The good news is that he is losing his touch as he goes.
Yeah, and it's being taken over by Ron DeSantis, who also isn't a classically liberal person.
Oh, I don't dissuade from that. I'm just very interested to see what Ronnie would do with the presidency at this point.
I'm not. We had this whole debate though. Like, everybody go check it out on Tyberius' channel because it's not on mine right now. I need to get it edited because I have I had a private conversation with Counterpoints about it. It was a good conversation, great conversation. We always have a good time. But I need to get it edited. It shows you how far behind I am.
Yeah, that conversation that Cypher and Connor had is on Connor's channel. That is
it's on
that is Counterpoints. Now. Yeah, okay. And you may want to check Counterpoints Coliseum. It may have got moved off. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but definitely go check out the two channels. For the conversation that I was involved with, which was kind of a recap of that, it was on my channel, and you can check that out under my birthday stream, because that's when we had it. Everyone was happy enough and nice enough to show up for my 31st birthday stream, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was a good time. Great conversations. People were giving me flack, but it was fun.
Oh my god. Yeah, but you know what? The best things about you are, one, you can actually take it on the chin without being a douche. And more importantly, is that you know your shit more than not. And so, like, the only problems I have with you is we have a different political lens that we view shit through. Yeah. And we're subject to those biases. But other than that, like, I don't think that you're I don't think you're a bad person. I don't think you're stupid. I don't think you're misinformed. I think you're solid. So it's like, more power to you.
I appreciate that, man. I think the same of you and honestly the whole crew that you have over there, honestly. So everybody pretty much knows their shit. So
I built out a pretty good community, and you can tell the people who don't know their shit, they'll just sit back in the back and they'll just meme. Yep. And if they want to say something, they will, but they're like, I wish that I could do a little bit more of the old conversation panels. I miss them a little bit. It's just right now the community and the scene isn't ready for it, and I don't really have the time. But just having people come in that could, that can crack a bat. I miss IPA coming on. But he would if we were more insistent, more regular. Changebox has come on a few times. Like, he's solid. There's a lot of people that are very welcome in my community that can, break some eggs. And quite honestly, I probably do need to I need to probably invest in like throwing together a panel or two every now and again just for them.
I can help with that. For people that might not know, Tiberius and I have been talking about collaborating a lot more because we're kind of simpatico when it comes to what we want to do with our channels. So this is something that I'm willing to help out with. It's just right now I can't edit for shit. Like, I can, but it's just taking me way too long to do so.
Too long. Yeah.
It's way too long. Like my UK episode, I've only had like 2 solid days to edit my UK episode, or else it'd be done already. If I had 3 days, if I had 3 solid days to do it back to back, I would have already had it done. Same thing with the Chinese episode, same thing with everything else. They would have already been done. But I don't. So it's coming to a timing thing. So something's going to change. So we'll find out what that might be. It might be not trying to produce high quality content and just go with the lives, or it might be cutting back and producing high quality content just a little less frequently. Just for everybody that might be watching still. Just an FYI. But Tiberius
is a pain in the ass.
Say again?
My ADHD is a pain in the ass. If I want to get something done, I can get something done, and I can edit a video in like an hour and a half, depending on how long it is, right? If I am just like, I gotta get through it, I will trug along, but I'll do it in 6 hours, and it's awful.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's... I wouldn't say so. I'm trying to make it too perfect for me. Like, too perfect for me. Not perfect, because it's not perfect. But anybody that sees the... Like, okay, if you have not watched the Iran episode on Tiberius's D channel, Iran, Shades of Atwood, What's Next, I think is the full title. Go watch it on my channel, and you'll see what I'm talking about, because I do zoom ins on when we're talking to make it look better. We did when we were live, we read off a script, and then I took that script and made a video for it, and that video is really good. So just check it out. I encourage you checking it out. You don't have to watch the whole thing. I encourage you to watch the whole thing, but I'm saying, like, at least check out the first like 3 or 4 minutes, and you'll see what I'm trying to go for. And that's the kind of content I want to produce. So, but Tiberius, I have to go walk my dogs. We're back to that schedule. So it was a pleasure having you on. If you want to shout yourself out again, real quick before I close out, please go ahead and do so.
Yeah, I just got home myself. Because everything started slowing down. I usually go for another hour, but I'm not picking up any orders. So my name is Tiberius D. I am a geopolitical analyst currently building out my own firm. Right now, I'm largely relegated to Twitch and YouTube and TikTok. So if you're interested in any or all those things, definitely go check it out. Hopefully, one day, if you are a business owner or a member of government, whatever, is that I can be prominent enough and respectable enough that you guys can invite me down to wherever it is that you are, and I can explain what's going on in the wider world and why it matters to you. And so definitely go help me out on YouTube. Give me a sub. Go help me out on Twitch. Give me a follow. And on TikTok, you can also give me a follow where you can see all the wonderful content that I do. And of course, please, definitely go check out Crowdsource Politics wherever you see them, wherever you find them. It's got great content, bringing you some great stuff. And of course, yours truly is going to be helping out more and more and more on those particular projects. And so we'll see you soon.
Yep. Again, Tiberius, thank you for joining me tonight. This show was a lot better because you were here. I am not blowing smoke up your ass. This was great. I love these conversations. I like these one-on-one things where we can bounce off of back and forth and just give the people what they want, which is quality fucking analysis and content. So with that, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. If you like what you heard, please smash that like button for the algorithms. It super duper helps us out. If you are interested in doing contests and the like, my last contest didn't go so well because nobody picked up on it, but we're doing contests every so often. We have one going on right now. Hey, go check out Twitter Pin tweet. If you want to get an easy fucking win, go make a prediction about who will win the House and who will win the Senate. Which party will take over the House, which party will take over the Senate. Go make your prediction on Twitter right now, and you'll probably be a winner because there's not many predictions right now. Do that, and we will be sending out a trophy. 100%, no BS. Gonna have to have your address to send it to you, okay? Or something similar. Maybe I'll make a temporary merch store or something for it, so you can put in your thing and I'll just reimburse you or whatever. But go on there, make a prediction. We're gonna give out a mug. It's gonna be good. An easy thing. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to give me any money for it. If you want to join the community, please go ahead, follow us up on Discord. That's where we're going to be doing some more stuff. We're going to have watch parties and things like that when we get back up into full strength here. And yeah, you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Twitch. The difference between Twitch and YouTube now is that Twitch contains all the live stuff. YouTube contains all the clips. So when we do clip stuff from this show, they'll be on YouTube. Maybe a little more production value, but definitely some clips on there. And YouTube will also hold the produced content. So Cypher State was on YouTube. Tiberius' D Conversations, when we have them, is on YouTube, and the like. And that's where they'll be permanently. Follow us on follow us on TikTok or Instagram, where I like to put up dog walking thoughts. Is a little program I made where I take about whatever's happening within the news that I want to talk about within a minute, and you get to see pretty dogs, because my girls are beautiful, gorgeous dogs, and it's fun. So go ahead and do check that out. And as we say at Crowdsource Politics, keep your head up through the political storm.